Today, we are going to talk about trust. And trust is something that I think anyone who gets involved in dominance and submission recognizes that there's importance. Really, in any relationship, there's a massive importance around trust, trustworthiness, trustability. But very rarely do we really dive into what trust is, how we earn it, how we give it. And it's been such a theme through our whole relationship in what trust really is and means that I think going into it together and breaking down what it's meant to us will really be helpful for a lot of people, because no one's going to say trust isn't important. Everyone would agree with the fact that trust is an important piece in any relationship. But then at the same time, the way that we show up in life, the way that we act, the way that we go through life, especially when we are tied into our own ego patterns and into our own beliefs, it makes it hard sometimes to do the things that would make you trustworthy or to extend trust to someone even if they've earned it. So I want to start on the side of earning trust. And specifically, I want to start this with me, because first, I believe that it is the man's responsibility always to go first in these kinds of things. Like, if I want to be trusted by you, I need to earn that trust. I need to be trustworthy in how I show up and how I live my life. So, what is it to you to feel a sense of trust in me? What does that feel like in you when you trust me?
That's kind of a hard question to dive into because my relationship, I guess, I don't know how else to say this, my relationship with the concept of trust is dramatically different from the beginning of our relationship to now.
Let's,
And I'm willing to say that the concept of trust is maybe overemphasized to some degree.
okay, go there. Tell me why you say that.
Because what I have realized is that my concept of trust before was really fear of getting hurt. It was fear of pain, fear of emotional pain. So I'm going to sidestep one moment because I do understand that physical safety in the world is dramatically important, right? So when I'm when I'm speaking about trust, I'm already like wiping off the table any sort of fear around my physical safety in our relationship. That has never been an issue for me. I, I knew you before we even started dating for 18 months, or more actually, maybe just slightly. And so I knew the kind of man you were. So obviously at the beginning, there is that, building of this idea of trust. But the more I went down this journey, the more I realized that it was my ego that kept me in this fear of pain. So everything that, I would say I trusted you because I do, and I always have. That doesn't mean that you haven't hurt me.
Mhm.
So when we speak about trust, like I think it's more important to differentiate what are we speaking about? What area are we speaking about versus one solid statement about trust. Because in a relationship where two people are committed to each other and becoming more of who they are, we are going to hurt each other sometimes. So does that mean you're not trustworthy if you're hurting me emotionally, hurting me? Or is that about me sometimes? It might be about you, it might be about me. And so that's what I'm talking about is on my journey, this mirror that I've had to put on myself of really recognizing where am I projecting my fear and my perfectionism with that mask of I don't want to get hurt.
So you make an interesting point about trust being overemphasized. And I think a part of what you're getting that at there is this idea that if you are acting out of fear of pain or fear of being hurt, that you might assume that I'm not trustworthy when really it's it is just your own ego using trust or a lack thereof as an excuse to keep you separate, right?
Yeah. And it very likely is real that maybe X happened in the past. I felt pain as a result. And so now I'm projecting again out of that fear, even at like unconsciously, obviously, but assuming now I can't trust you here.
Well, it's the assumption that something happened this way one time, therefore it's always going to happen that way again forever.
Right.
So we've both had our versions of doing that to each other.
Absolutely.
I know I've done it to you. You clearly know that you've done it in the other direction. How does that version of like the trust around the ego or the ego using trust or lack thereof differ from the feeling of trust that you have now and
Mm.
what it is to you now?
It's complete belief and confidence that you've got me in any way that's possible while still accepting your humanness in all of its expression. It's being able to set down, or maybe say it this way, say, I'm not listening to you, ego, and opening myself with the most vulnerability, with the love and the devotion, while knowing I could experience pain. So it's holding all of that at one time, but knowing that you will always give me your best, you will always love me. With every breath you take.
And I absolutely will.
There's this knowing in my body that I don't have the words for, but it extends beyond you to, I don't like saying it this way, but I don't know how else to say it, but like masculine as a whole.
You trust in your own okayness, that you're going to be taken care of and looked after and provided for
Yes,
by me, but also, if not by me, that you're going to be okay.
right. And again, I just want to emphasize it's accepting your humanness as well. Like accepting that you might forget something sometimes. I'm still okay.
Right. Perfectionism kind of makes trust impossible, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry for all of my projections there.
I've done it too because for me, something it took me a long time to see was how I had my own like internal issues with perfection and really expecting perfection out of myself and putting pressure on myself to do everything perfect all the time and feeling like a failure whenever I didn't, like whenever I wasn't up to the absolute highest standard of something. And, you know, this conversation is going to go in about 100 different directions today, but to kind of stick to where you started on my side, I've also had to learn to trust you. And the sense of trust that I have in you now is really based on the fact that I see you showing up for yourself every day. I see you showing up with a commitment to not just to doing it perfect. It's not what it's about at all. It's a commitment to this relationship, it's a commitment to this connection, it's a commitment to me, but it's not about me. It's about the trust that I have in you is just this knowing that you are there. Like you're here, you're with me, that you're not off in la la land, you're not off trying to fix the world or save the world or change other people or hate yourself or hate on like anything. You're present with yourself. And the trust that I feel in you is something that I feel in your alignment with your own embodiment, with your own sense of being connected to who you are. Because when you're connected to you, you're available to me, you're open to me.
I think that's an important aspect there is like at the beginning of this, there was a trust in me that you were going to show up for me. There was a trust in myself that I was going to show up for you. Now that looks dramatically different, but it's only because we were so committed to that growth, the expansion, you rising, me descending into the authentic versions of ourselves, which is still ongoing. But I have to say that the self that I experience now, the me, is real. I was going to say it's so different. Absolutely. But it feels real. And so now my like, my I have complete trust in you that you show up for me every day as you as well. And I know that I show up as me. And when I think about how would I describe me is just love. How can I be love to you all the time?
One of the things that I've had to do for myself is learn how to trust myself.
Essential piece.
So I want to give a couple examples of what that's looked like for me because if I'm going to be leading, if I'm leading in this relationship, if I'm leading in the bedroom, if I'm leading in our life, if I'm leading you, I have to be, first of all, I have to be going somewhere, right? I have to be making forward progress in my life. So I have somewhere, you have somewhere to go to with me. If I'm just sitting stagnant, asking you to submit to me, there's nothing for you to submit to. There's nothing for you to follow if I don't have some sort of directionality with my life. And where I had to learn to trust myself the most was in having an ability to take myself somewhere. Because there was a big stretch of my life where I lost the faith in myself, the faith in my own ability to accomplish what I set out to accomplish. Because I had a long stretch early in my life where it felt like I could do no wrong. Everything I did turned to gold. Every like I had so much faith in myself and so much like I had so much empowerment in myself that it just felt like I could do anything. I had some skills and talents and abilities that when I put them to use, things just seemed to kind of lay themselves out in my life. Opportunities and the right people at the right times. It really did kind of feel like I had the world on a string when I was younger. And then I went through a phase of my life that really encompassed a lot of my late 20s through most of my 30s, where I didn't feel like I had so much power over my reality. I kind of became a victim of it. And I had a hard time moving myself forward because I felt very stuck. And in some ways, it was like I kind of lost my mojo, but maybe I did, maybe I didn't. The reality is, I stopped making progress and started letting myself be stagnant. And really, in part, that was because I started trying to cling to things that weren't for me anymore and try not to lose something that I had gained in this part of my life and then look over in this part of my life and wonder why I can't move forward. And so things I've talked about here on this podcast before, like getting myself in shape, like getting out of that soul crushing corporate job when I wanted to do these things and I couldn't, starting other businesses. I tried a half dozen times to start some kind of different business that might help me get out of my corporate job that just kind of died faster than it started. And the process I had to go through to learn to trust myself again really was like shutting a lot of the old shit off, like leave it behind, and then almost starting over in a way. This business, Infinite Devotion, was kind of a starting over. And getting myself in shape was like building trust in myself meant taking little, small, tiny steps, which as a guy felt really hard to do when I already kind of felt like I had my shit figured out. So there's a sense of like fear and shame and embarrassment around starting something and not knowing already how to do it well, or not already having the level of success in the new thing that I already see myself as having, or other people see me as having in these other parts of my life. And so I had to kind of kill off that fear of being seen as something other than already successful. And that was a big part for me in learning to trust myself again, to be able to take action and go forward in my life.
For me, it's kind of hard to even wrap my mind around what has it been like for me to learn how to trust myself, because so like none of this happens in a vacuum. Like all of these things, these emotional pains from the past are all connected in different ways. And so, the concept of trust, learning how to trust myself has been an ongoing process.
Mhm.
Um, but I remember one moment where I came face to face. I still remember, I don't think I'll ever forget where I was standing. I don't remember the day, I just remember the place. I was walking through our kitchen, and all of a sudden it was like I was hit, slapped in the face, because I was thinking the last few days like I wasn't trusting you, and it wasn't making any sense to me. It felt really confusing why all of a sudden it was surfacing. And what I got slapped in the face with was, you don't trust yourself. And so, I've a lot of that was looking at the choices that I had made in my past and recognizing the judgment and shame around a lot of them, the self abandonment, doing things out of obligation. And so my life was filled with this disconnection with self. So, how could I trust myself to begin with?
Mhm.
And so it was for the first time in my life where I actually grieved that and was able to step forward with a new awareness and then looking for ways to trust myself. And it happened. I had to grieve the ways I didn't, but that moved, that threw me and allowed more of that real me to be felt and experienced and build that trust.
One of the ways that played out for you was learning to speak up for yourself,
Absolutely.
like building your own sense of trust that, well, for one, that you could say no if you meant no, because that wasn't something you had done at a lot of those points in your past.
Yep.
So share with our listeners, if you will, like what was that part of the process like for you, learning how to use your voice, learning how to speak up and say, like express yourself, say what you felt.
It felt so scary at first,
Hmm.
incredibly scary, vulnerable, because it came with a lot of fear of hurting someone else, or what are they going to think of me? And so that also led me to differentiating between and what was underneath even that. So I had you giving me all the permission, the acceptance to speak up, to share, express, like whatever it is. And I know for you at the beginning that wasn't super easy either.
You know, I saw the value, I knew it was important, but it also stung a lot of times because these were the same things you didn't express were the things that I didn't want to hear a lot of times.
Right. And some of this was from pain from the past, some of it was in our relationship. And that's when that, you know, more of the emotional experience started coming out, um, which again, just simply doing that naturally cultivated this trust in myself that I would do that. Now, I just had an experience in the last couple weeks having to speak up about getting my hair done in another state with a random person. And I had to go back two more times to have them change something about it. And that was so uncomfortable. But I knew, like standing there, sharing my feelings and thoughts and just having that conversation, I was so like aware that this is possible, that I'm able to do this because of how far I've come and how much trust I've built in myself. it doesn't mean things are always easy.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there's never pain, but it's always worth it, I guess. So I guess the only way forward is staying present with what's in front of you and expressing what needs to be expressed. And then it's just like one more foundation block inside of you, like, yes, I chose myself, I did it. And that's one after another.
What I've witnessed in you, and feel free to correct me on this if this doesn't come out as true for your experience, but I want to just vocalize what I've seen in you.
You are so amazing at this, so please share.
As you have learned to speak up for yourself, to have the ability to, I'll just use the word to be confrontational when necessary.
It still is like, ah.
I know it, and I can see the way that it rattles you, like if you have to do it with me or with the hairdresser or with anyone else. But your ability to do it has given you the sense of knowing that if something doesn't go in a way that honors honors you, that's respectful to you, that treats you with the worthiness and the value that you represent, that you won't be walked on.
That's a great way of sharing it, yes.
It's like this fear that you had, that a lot of women who come to us to discuss submission have, is this fear of becoming a doormat,
Mm-hmm.
of just having your choice taken away from you and forced to do things you don't want to do with no right to speak up or say anything about it. And this is where trust and trust in yourself makes submission something other than that. It's where I've seen you actually go deeper into submission and more able to follow me because you know and you trust in yourself that if I were to go to take you somewhere that wasn't right for you or that you didn't feel right about, that you have the ability, and really you you've lost the inability not to speak up. It just, you will do it, and you know that, and you trust that in yourself, which means that it's easier for you to let go and follow me.
Right. And, you know, that's why trust gets really complicated because the biggest piece is cultivating that relationship with yourself,
Mhm.
that you'll recognize any sort of self abandonment and be able to choose yourself over someone else. So, for someone who's in a relationship, it's like, well, how do I build the trust there? Well, it starts with you because if someone else does something to you that doesn't feel good, you speak up about it, assuming it's not something major and physical safety and all of that, and you speak up about it and something doesn't change, and maybe you speak up again and it doesn't change, you have to know that if this relationship is no longer serving you, you will walk away. And that's choosing yourself, it's trusting yourself. And that's like this whole, can I trust you? Yes and no, because it's not about you never hurting me.
Well,
It's and now in our relationship, it's about me actually speaking up if you hurt me, knowing that that's all I can do, really.
right. And then the other side, because there are two sides to this trust coin
Hmm.
in any single thing. Like the example you just gave, if I do something that hurts you, you trust, like I know you have the trust in yourself that you're going to speak up, or you're
Right.
going to say something to me.
Yeah.
And I have not only invited that, but I've told you that I expect it. And it's actually a part of the rules of our relationship that you will speak up if I do something that's hurtful to you, because I need to know that I did that,
Right.
because my intention is never to hurt you. But that doesn't mean that you're never going to feel hurt by something that I've done. And if you feel hurt by something that I've done, it doesn't mean that I was actually being hurtful to you, but maybe it does.
Right.
It may mean that something that I did with complete pure intentions triggered some remembrance of hurt in you from the past that made you feel hurt. And so they're like, that's the two sides, right? It's the the trust that you have in yourself, the trust you have in me for me to hear you, the trust that I have that you're going to speak up and share with me so I know what's going on with you, and then the trust that I have in you that you are going to receive me in the way that I remedy whatever that is. Whether that is seeing that it's about me and apologizing, like, newsflash, dominance can apologize. Um, so that, but also if it's something that needs to be seen in you, that I can call that out and you'll receive that.
Right. The other little thing I want to add to what you were talking about there is back to the ego thing is I now trust myself to not attach to a story that my ego is trying to make up about something you did or didn't do. For example, if, let's say, we're sitting here, I go to the bathroom, I come back, and now you're doing something else. And I sit back down with you and you don't immediately give me your attention. My ego can make up a ton of stories about what that means or doesn't mean. I trust myself to not fall for those because the ego hasn't stopped yet. I'll let you know if it does. But I honestly don't even notice it the same way because if I'm doing any sort of abandonment, I'm abandoning my ego. And that's, for me, one of the biggest pieces of like just trusting my own embodiment and my own ability to be in the moment and the presence. Like, I tell you what, if you rewind me a few years, I remember feeling so lost in like, what does it mean to be in your body? And like, how do you just live in the moment? And letting go, like, I don't even know what to let go of. Right? And so, like, yeah, my whole life experience is different because I can trust myself.
So that example you kind of pathetically gave was actually something that happened this morning,
Sort of.
sort of, where you got up and left and you were gone. So I started reading something.
Mhm.
You came back and sat down, and I was still reading what I was reading when you sat down.
Mhm.
And so instead of getting upset at me or sulking or shutting down, you said to me, "Sir, please give me your attention. I want your attention back." And so I set down what I was reading. I put my arm around you and gave you my attention back.
Mhm.
And so that's that trust thing in play in real time, because you trusted yourself enough to speak up for the fact that you wanted my attention.
Yep.
And you trusted that I would respond to that in a way that wasn't like, "I'm busy, can't you see I'm doing something else now?" And just reject you, that I would receive what you had to say. It didn't mean that I was necessarily going to give you my attention back, but I was going to receive that from you And so you knew both in yourself that you could say it and in yourself that I was going to receive it.
Absolutely.
So the next corner I want to turn in this trust conversation is one that we've had to work through both in our own ways. And that's the idea of learning to trust after we've had reasons not to in the past.
Hmm.
And this, in another way, this is saying like giving you each other the permission to change. Because when, if I'm going through putting effort into growth, into becoming a better man in some way or another, it doesn't mean I'm going to do it perfect. I'm going to probably fall apart about 100 times in the process and do the 2 steps forward and 1 step back thing. And if you are only willing to look at the evidence that I'm not there yet and point out every time that I fail, point out every time that I'm not doing it right, then you don't have you aren't giving me the opportunity to find my own way in my growth. And the same thing the other direction. So this comes back to, we did a whole episode on patience a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it comes back to patience, but this is another thread on trust is like, if I see you growing, I have to be able to allow you to become this new person rather than just getting pissed that you aren't there yet.
Yeah. So the way I kind of see that is I have to say no to my ego when my ego wants to pull me into all the reasons why from the past without even labeling them. It's just this feel, right? Of here's all the reasons why you shouldn't trust him right now. Trust his desire to change and be better. I have to say no to that and give you the opportunity to show me something better, something new, something real. Because if I'm falling for my ego, you were operating under your ego before, and now you're saying, hey, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be better. And so I'm faced with which version do I want to trust? And that's where what I said at the beginning about this, that's not trust. That's just looking for evidence of everything being the way it used to be.
And this is the crabs in a bucket analogy. This is how people pull other people back down without even realizing they're doing it or intending to do it. But the crabs in a bucket analogy is, if you put a bunch of crabs into a bucket and one of those crabs starts to climb out, the other crabs will reach up and grab it and pull it back into the bucket.
Yep.
Like, no, we're down here. Stay with your people. Stay with your other crabs. And this is what we do when we don't give someone permission to change. And when I say don't give them permission to change, I mean reinforcing who you've always known them to be. Like, you're bad at that, or you always do that. Like, or this is what you're like. You're like this. So you have these, like, if you hold this definition, if I hold this definition in my mind of who you are based on who you've always been, and then you show me something different, or you state an intention or a desire to do something different, but I'm still treating you as though you are this way because that's what I've always known of you. And you go, I'm going to be better. And I go, and I drag you back into that bucket. Like, you're like this. It's essentially telling you that I won't accept change from you. And we do this for all kinds of reasons, right?
Yeah.
We could probably spend a whole hour talking about the reasons why people drag each other down for fear of being outgrown. And
It's just fear.
yeah, but the willingness to let each other grow and give each other the patience as we do. Like if I see you wanting to climb, I want to help you climb. I'm not afraid of you climbing away from me. I want to see you at your best, at your brightest, at your sparkliest.
So the other part that I want to speak to in like kind of growing out of who we were into who we are now and what I experienced in you is, yeah, you did hurt me sometimes. Hurt me or my ego. Um, yes, you did collapse. Yes, you did some funny things.
Well,
But you
and
always,
dropped you like when I said I was going to show up in a certain way and then
yeah,
didn't.
but you owned it and you took responsibility for it. And, the one thing that has always been real, at some point you came up with the language like, let's do this from the same side of the table.
Mhm.
And so we were always able to reconnect in love and devotion to each other, which also meant ourselves. And we both knew that. And so I, you started showing me a different version of yourself. And then you owned any time you weren't showing up in the way that you had committed to. And, you know, that is a trust building thing that is necessary in order to get to like what we share now.
And that's, it's an important thing, especially to note for the guys who are watching or listening to this. The guys tend to get really hard on ourselves when we try and fail.
Yeah.
What we perceive as failure, which is really just not having mastered it yet.
And we have our own versions of that. I think a lot of people do.
So, yes. So this, like, giving yourself permission as a man to continue moving forward, even if you fall down, to stand back up and try again, fall down, stand back up and try again. Like it is a process. That is the process of learning to trust yourself. That, I don't know what this is from, but, fall down 9 times, stand up 10. If you're really committed to something, whether it's getting in shape or being a better partner for your spouse or healthy eating or whatever might be, when it doesn't go as planned once, learning to trust yourself means, okay, learned my lesson there, let's keep going. And then you're showing yourself that you're going to show up for yourself. But on this whole like permission to change and trust thing, this really comes into play when we've shifted kind of the dynamic of our relationship from how it used to be to what it is now, especially in the arena of approaching this as like, how good can this relationship get, rather than like trying to keep ourselves from hurting each other and trying to keep ourselves from being hurt and avoiding pain. Like, no, I want this to be as good as it can be, which means if you need something, I want you to speak up for it and I want to try to give it to you. I choose not to receive that as a threat. I'm going to choose to receive that as an opportunity to give you a better experience of being with me, of being my submissive, of being my wife. So then if I start to move forward into that and I'm not perfect at it, maybe for months or years, depending on how big of a thing it is and how much it requires of me. If you trust in my intentionality and my desire to move there. And you start to see and even appreciate and have gratitude for the parts of it where I'm succeeding, where I'm showing up. And then when I fall down, saying, I believe in you, you got this. And then that is like encouragement for me to continue moving forward rather than, and that's trust, right? You are trusting that I'm going to continue to move forward. And so you're seeing that, you're believing it, you're trusting it, you're showing me that. And that for me is just encouragement. And we've both had that with each other. We've had the places where I've asked you in moving into this dominant submissive dynamic and into this deeper, more spiritually connected kind of relationship. I've asked a lot of you to grow and become different than how you were before. And you really didn't have any way to know that where I was taking you was better. You just trusted me. And I trusted in your willingness to go there, even when it felt like we went through periods of weeks, months, in some of the things, years where we weren't going anywhere.
So I have two different things there.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the trust that I had to have in you and your connection to God consciousness. But my first question for you is, what was it like to trust me? Because I know the ups and downs I have. I know you remember even more of them than I do. I know there were times where you would, and we would feel so connected, and then it was like it was gone. So, what was that like for you in maybe feeling my submission and then not in certain ways, or feeling more submission than in certain times than others?
I'll even use a bigger word than submission here. I'll say like feeling you, and then you were gone. And there was just this shell of you that was left when I, like, it felt like I could touch the authentic you, and you were here and we were connected and it was so powerful. And then you were gone. Um, it had to feel like faith, honestly. In some ways it was faith in my own ability to keep finding the right next step forward, to keep leading you to a place where you could always be there in yourself. Because this wasn't just about me getting this from you, it was also when I saw you there and when we were in that deep connection, I saw you loving yourself. I saw you being present in yourself. I saw you alive. And then it was like you were dead on the inside when you would go away. And not only did I lose you, but you lost you. And for me to trust that you could come to a place where you could be there, not just for me, but for yourself all the time, looked a lot for me like trusting in myself that I could find a way to show it to you. Because I knew that from that place where you were so shut down inside of yourself, that there was no finding a path forward for yourself, because you weren't even there to find it. So it was faith in myself, really, that you trusted me enough to be here with me, and I needed to somehow reach in there and pull out whatever was there and help you see the parts that needed to be let go of. Because it never was about making something exist that didn't exist. It was bringing out what was already in you that was getting shut down.
You just described everything about my second question. You're just making me cry because it's all of that in it's your belief in yourself and how you would share it and deliver the depths of those things you saw in me and the way you would share them with me with so much love, devotion, compassion, empathy, and then patience, coupled with the internal knowings that I experienced. Like I had to be able to drop out of my mind, out of my ego, and feel the truth in them. And that is how my whole relationship with God has been also healed and experienced in a whole new way because of you. So thank you.
You're welcome. I've always known what was possible in you because I saw it. I've you've shared so much of your life with me. There's no stone unturned after 15 years of this relationship.
That's funny because earlier today I was just thinking, like, is there anything about my life that I remember that's worth even talking about? Let's just say that you don't know. And I'm like, I can't think of one like vulnerable thing that I haven't shared with you.
So I've seen so much of you because you've opened yourself to me in that way. And I knew, I know who you are. When I know who you are, I know who you are when you're fully alive, when you're fully present in yourself, when you are all the way there. And it's about you being all the way present in you, because then there's something of you for me to connect to.
Right.
So this has always been about me seeing that truth in you and knowing what it's like to see that. I use this word sparkle, right? Because any guy who loves his woman, who's seen her like fully alive, fully in her, all the way in her presence, there's no better way to describe a woman who is all the way connected to herself and all the way alive than sparkle. Like, and so I've seen you sparkle, and you've told me stories about times in the past when you've been in your sparkle, whether you accepted that they were good about you or not. A lot of times they were things you had judged
Yeah.
yourself for
Absolutely.
having fun or enjoying your life. But I knew that this was possible. And so I chose to trust that you wanted to live in that kind of energy all the time, because I think everyone does. And that was a big part of how I kind of kept my faith in you, that if I could show you a way to that aliveness, that you would go there with me.
Hmm. I just, I honestly sit kind of just in awe and I guess it would be admiration for you and your, again, patience, but you're relentless with all of the compassion and love in the world of just having your arm around me and saying, come with me. And you never gave up on me, no matter how challenging things got, and you still won't. And I know that. It's not like this is over. But speaking about the past, I know what some of those moments were. And my life is just completely different because of your trust in me. But I think even the bigger point that I would say is the trust you had in yourself to lead me and us.
And that's probably a good like final topic on this whole trust thing is trust for a man in yourself starts with self-worth. It doesn't start with self-confidence. It doesn't start with like getting yourself becoming a millionaire or becoming successful in the worldly pursuits of, money or fame or, whatever. This is really about building a sense of solidity within yourself where you, like for me it was the more that I recognize my ability to be firm and solid in spite of how you were feeling, in spite of what was going on in the world around me, whatever the tragedies were, whatever the extremely chaotic things that have happened in my life, recognizing that I am still there's a part of me that's unchanged, that's still solid, that I can connect to anytime, anywhere, gives me a sense of my own ability to be stable. And that's more of a foundation for self-worth than any money or any sexual or like experience or anything else that might really just be seeking validation. True self-worth in a man requires no validation. It's just acknowledging the fact that you are worthy. And that's not just men, that's any human being. There's self-worth is what we inherently are. It's only our own negative self-talk that talks us out of believing that we're worthy. So being able to approach my life and my leadership of this relationship and my business and everything that I do from that place gives me this sense of trust in myself that I'm going to make the right decision, the best decision that I can, that I'm going to see what needs to be seen, and I'm going to go where I need to go. And I'm going to take you with me because you're mine. You're the one that I've chosen, the one that the person that I'm going to do this love and connection with for the rest of my life. All of that starts with my own trust in myself, which is based in my own self-worth, my own knowing of my deservedness, my own trust in the value that I offer as a man. And that's got nothing to do with you whatsoever. And it can't be done just for you. It's something that I have to experience and be for me so that you have something, so that I can be something firm for you to lean into.
Yeah, that is beautifully shared.
So the biggest takeaways on trust from this conversation, and I think from our relationship, is there's there really are two sides in every single encounter. There's actually probably four sides to trust in every encounter. It's my ability to trust you and trust myself, and there's your ability to trust me and trust yourself. And when all of those are present, then then we really are one, because then all the walls are down. And that all starts with responsibility. I think it starts with being having enough self-love to be able to look inward and find those places where that's not present.
And also exposing yourself and being fully open to the potential of being hurt. Like that is how you, in my opinion, deepen into the love and the devotion and the depths of the relationship and trust that we have for each other, because it's not about never being hurt. And I think that is an important aspect of trust building, is being able to differentiate.
Thank you for your vulnerability in this conversation. I know it'll be helpful for those who listen to it. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching and listening.
Thank you for being here with us.